This is Mark Mullinax. Welcome back to our podcast class on Taoism. Each class or episode treats one of the 81 very rich verses of Tao Te Ching, Taoism's core text. Today, verse 64, How Things Began, Part 2. Much of this verse was already anticipated in, and we treated in, verse 63, entitled How Things Began, Part 1. I'll not be repeating myself too much today, so one may return to our treatment of verse 63 for those teachings. Today, we'll just review 64's unique teachings, and then, with our guests' help, we'll pull the camera back and see how Tao Te Ching can affect and change one life.
When you listen to the ground and you put your roots down, you can hear what she says if you're listening. When you listen to the ground and you put your roots down, you can hear what she says if you're listening. The sweet sound of the river as she moves over the stones. The same song that the blood in your body sings as it weaves around your bones. When you're listening, are you listening?
If someone can see an event while it is still small and can change their behavior, we say that person has vision. Swan Sung. Patiently and slowly, we must transform ourselves before we can transform the world. Grace Lee Boggs.
To notice things is just being human. Sunsets, threats, loved ones, weather changes. However, to see things in embryo, in the seed, whether within oneself or without, is genius. Practicing the wisdom to understand things beginning is wisdom itself. Seeing how things begin, without the loud volume of your own thoughts, that's wisdom. Seeing things in embryo. Now, there's no guaranteed results, but generally speaking, it's an informed life to practice seeing how things begin. And here's some examples and teachings that we've all had. You could add your own. Seeing a forest and the acorn. Realizing a home from just the architect's plans. Crawling before walking, and walking before running. One of my friends says, but first, coffee. Don't bite off more than one can chew. One step at a time. First things first. Rome wasn't built in a day. Keep things simple. Slow and steady wins the race. Now, we may have been born wise, but no one is born mature. I'm almost 6 feet 2 inches tall, but I began as a 23-inch baby. To become mature is an option or road perhaps not taken. So take care as you mature. Pay attention. Paying attention is a major teaching of this verse. And now, speaking of beginnings, and to help us understand today's verse's wisdom, is my friend and future podcast partner, Chandler Schroeder. That's right, class, future podcast partner. Chandler and I are conspiring, which means to breathe together. We're conspiring on a new schedule of a series of related podcasts on religion, the ideas of religion, on faith, and how the imagination fuels all of these. The pods we have been working on are based upon Chandler's career as a counselor and my 30-year teaching career in New York City, Asheville, North Carolina, and Seoul, Korea. We have already a YouTube channel called the Technicolor Dreamcoat of Religion, which I think will be the overall title of our podcast. And this link will be in the show notes, by the way. But later this year, Chandler and I will launch Semester 1 on, quote, How Religions Get Made, unquote, a course based upon my most popular class on the introduction to the idea and the study of religion. If you want to go to YouTube and follow the Technicolor Dreamcoat of Religion, you'll get updates there. But you can also keep this podcast feed going, Power for the Peaceful. Just keep it open and you'll get all the introductory updates. Chandler, you want to say anything else here?
Yeah, Mark, absolutely. This is a dream of mine because I've wanted to do a podcast since podcasts became a thing, and honestly never found anybody that I was comfortable doing that with, and couldn't find a topic that I thought would really light my fire day in and day out. And so doing this with you for the folks out there who already love Power for the Peaceful, I think this is a perfect supplement to, and will expound upon things that people think just happen. Mm-hmm. Maybe we look at why.
Yeah, get under the hood and see what's going on there. Well, thank you, and we're excited, and we're talking about a multi-year project here. Let your friends know, and we're going to start this up as soon as we can. So, Chandler, today is verse 64. Would you please read our verse?
Of course. 64, Beginnings, Part 2. It is easier to manage undeveloped things. When something has not yet emerged, it is easier to manage. Undeveloped things are the easiest to disrupt. Trifling matters disperse best. Resolve things before they become unsolvable. Order your affairs before chaos happens, and it will. That large tree that you cannot put your arms around was once the tiniest shoot. This 9-story tower began as a single brick in the dirt. Your longest journey needs your first step. Meddlers ruin, graspers lose their hold. By not meddling, the sage never fails. Dominate nothing and lose nothing. When near a project's completion, do not ruin it by dropping your caution. Hence the maxim, care at the end as well as at the beginning assures success. The sage's one desire is never to aspire wrongly or chase needless luxury. She practices learned simplicity. She restores the people's mistakes and assists all beings to return to their natural selves. All this, and without presumptuous meddling.
All right, let's start with you, Chandler. Do you have any initial thoughts on this verse?
I do. You know better than to ask me if I have thoughts on something.
Oh, no.
No, this is very, I think, poignant to where we are in the life cycle of humanity. I mean, we have a lot of things that are up in the air, from the election to the new administration to natural disasters to things going on worldwide. And, as you know, and hopefully the listeners have figured out by now, I myself am in recovery and owe a debt of gratitude to Alcoholics Anonymous. And one of the things that AA teaches is, as you said earlier, keep it simple. Put first things first. And for me, I think of this like, I really want to hike the Appalachian Trail. That is a life goal of mine. And I'll never get to hike that trail unless I take that first step. That's what this verse makes me think of.
So, my dear listeners, class, what's your equivalent of the Appalachian Trail? What do you need to simplify in order to get there? Well, today's verse contains the most famous jewel of wisdom in the Tao Te Ching, which translators have interpreted in the following phrases. And Chad and I will alternate these. A journey of 1,000 miles starts under one's feet.
A journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single footstep.
The journey of 1,000 li commences with a single step.
It takes a single step to start a journey of 1,000 miles.
A great expedition starts with a little step.
1,000 miles journey begins with a foot.
Or in my translation, it reads, your longest journey needs your first step. It's simple, really. Everything has a beginning, a hatching, and once something's begun, it's on the way to its maturity, which presages this verse's really cool advice later on.
When near a project's completion, do not ruin it by dropping your caution. Hence the maxim, care at the end as well as at the beginning assures success.
Practicing the wisdom to understand things' beginnings is wisdom itself. And let's be clear, the care one takes with beginnings requires of us the follow-through energy to see something through to its end. So notice in your life the beginnings of open-ended processes, like the birth of a human being, or the planting of a potentially 100-foot tall tree. Sometimes, we should be hands-off or wu-wei about things once begun. But we also see how some things well begun, like one's own children, requires our attention, but not our controlling. so we can accompany our kids through babyhood and childhood and teenage years until, we hope, they're ready to leave the nest. But while we can have kids, we cannot control how they will grow. Let me repeat that. While we can have kids, we cannot control how they'll grow. To micromanage kids is to stunt their potential. And this verse reminds us again of Wu Wei's not meddling. I heard a new phrase recently, lawnmower parents, which is the new term for helicopter parents, named after machines used for cutting grass. Lawnmower patients mow down any potential obstacle they feel their child might experience. And according to Professor Karen Fancher, who coined this term, lawnmower parents rush ahead to intervene, saving the child from normal challenges, potential inconveniences, problems, or discomforts. This is just unwise parenting behavior that cannot be good for the young. Children who rarely face challenges become less resilient, less confident, more anxious. Without working things out for themselves, kids may develop a heightened sense of entitlement. To over-control their eventual maturity and development is often a recipe for brooding teenagers, rebellious behaviors, and secret lives. Wanting specific results from processes way out of our control is just downright greed on our parts. It's not the children's fault if they don't measure up to my privatized expectations. We cannot make the world into a reflection of self, where you see only your own signature everywhere you look. What a tiny, boring universe that would be. So there's a wisdom in letting things become what they are. We can start to see things as they are, not as we want them to be. Simple? Yeah. Difficult? Very much so. Now this letting things become what they are is wisdom. But we have to understand what is real versus what is imaginary. Because the reverse of this teaching is also true. Your long journey with a deadly habit needs your first cooperating compromise. We've all had some bad habit of mind or of practice that we began as a tiny, small, even cute thing years ago. But now it's taken over and we cannot manage it now. If you've ever experienced marriage as hell, perhaps you can trace it back to a single fateful day or some unfortunate decision. And to change directions when hounded by a habit is so hard.
A needle makes a tapestry. A basket of earth makes a wall. Success and failure begin from something small. Why Nanzu?
So small things rule the world. The Taoist or any person from any wisdom tradition can discern in advance whether that first step will be life-giving or life-sucking. Chandler, you got some thoughts here?
I do, actually. So I'm gonna refer back to my therapy practice as a therapist, a counselor. Dealing with people oftentimes that have very, very dire mental health diagnoses. We also work with behavioral health, and so when I sit back and I think about what this verse is saying, or really what the Tao Te Ching is saying as a whole, is it's everywhere, it's everything. But the simplicity of it is what has always drawn me back to it. Mm-hmm. And I work with my clients and my patients with that. And I say, let's think about how you got where you are. Mm-hmm. And let's think about what things happened that maybe we can examine, dissect, mm-hmm. and figure out moving forward, what do we do different? Mm-hmm. Back to the idea of hiking. You take a trail and you realize you don't like that trail. Well, you go back to where the trail started and take another one. And I think that's something that the Tao gives us that isn't very easy to get otherwise.
By discernment or being wise, I'm not talking about being action lazy, but rather resetting and rewiring the brain away from the constant stress of managing things that do not need your managerial skills. Things are doing just fine by themselves, thank you very much. No doubt a 13.5 billion year old universe is unfolding as it should, like it has for eons, without our unwise meddling. I'm talking about Wu Wei, yet again, Taoism's main teaching. So yes, be attentive to beginnings, even new beginnings in yourself, but then retire This is the prescription for happiness, stress reduction in life, and peace. We've said here before, but I'm going to repeat now, E.F. Schumacher's wisdom here from his masterpiece, Small is Beautiful.
Ecology holds that an environmental setting developed over millions of years must be considered to have some merit. Anything so complicated as a planet, inhabited by over 1.5 million species of plants and animals, all of them living together in a more or less balanced equilibrium in which they continuously use and reuse the same molecules of air and soil, cannot be improved by aimless and uninformed tinkering.
Wu Wei, knowing when to do and then not to do, from the very beginnings of one's affairs. How do we know when that first step is the right one in the right direction? First, don't lie. Lying is the futile attempt to change, deny, or alter reality, which does not change or go away based on our wishful thinking. Reality is a set of conditions we adjust to, not fight. We adjust to being human, parents, citizens. We do not fight these so much, right? Now, be advised, I'm not talking about getting all adjusted and comfy with the realities of racism, sexism, and other oppressions of our day. Second, live with moments of meditation sewn in and embroidered throughout your day. Meditation, or trained awareness, is really the only sensible approach to our reality and the problems that arise from living. In meditation, we practice expert attention to attend carefully to life. And through that, we learn how to avoid attachments, avoid chasing preferences, avoid interfering with the what is. In meditation, we learn the wise difference between the what is and the what can never be. The unhappy life is one that chases preferences that can never be or don't last, attachments that just don't satisfy.
For things to reveal themselves to us, we need to be ready to abandon our views about them. Thich Nhat Hanh in Being Peace.
Third, discuss your commitment to not lying and to meditation-inspired approaches to reality with your partner or a community of accountability. Have them be your companions in this life, which literally means those with whom you break bread together. That's what companion means. In these two verses, 63 and 64, we focus upon the power of wise beginnings. Once things have begun, retire, let go. It is in the nature of nature to let what is natural grow. Duh. Remember, Tao works behind the scenes in the small events, using the least likely of people. And our helping things along, like a lawnmower parent, leads to stifled potential.
Everything has its course. When the time is right, it arrives. But people are blind to this truth and work to speed things up. They try to help heaven and end up ruining things just as they near their completion. Wang Pang.
So let's pause for a moment, Chandler. Do you have anything you'd like to add or integrate into our comments so far?
Nothing really that's come up other than the more that I read, the more that I study the Tao, the more we talk, the more I see that we take tiny steps in a certain direction. And as you take those steps, you have to alter your course. You have to do things a little different. And learning that by trial and error is truly the only way that anything sinks in, at least for me. Yeah. Okay. And so if I can keep that mindset of try it, see what happens, adjust, do it again, it makes it not so hard to quote unquote fail in something. This is how it's supposed to be anyway.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, the obvious application of this verse could be something like this. What am I starting? What journey needs my first step? What keyhole holds the right space for the key that I am? To what kind of balance do I wisely throw my attention? You see, life is our journey to take. The journey is long and sometimes difficult, but care is needed from first to middle and to finish. But just go a millimeter in the wrong direction, and you may need a meter of hard work just to turn things around. #Titanic. I'm sure you can remember one of those hard times in your own life as we take a short break.
When you listening? When you're listening, are you listening? When you're listening, when you're listening, are you listening?
You cannot do kindness too soon, for you never know how soon it will be too late. Ralph Waldo Emerson.
How do we apply this? Well, let's look to the second half of a verse.
When near a project's completion, do not ruin it by dropping your caution, hence the maxim, care at the end as well as the beginning, assures success. The sage's one desire is never to aspire wrongly or chase needless luxury. She practices learned simplicity. She restores the people's mistakes and assists all beings to return to their natural selves. All this, and without presumptuous meddling.
So this podcast episode you're listening to released early in 2025, when the political culture threw us one huge chaotic mess after another. And I'm holding back my language. Fire hoses of information, much of it irrelevant, all of it designed to confuse, cause imbalance, and to bewilder. What has become obvious to this Taoist podcaster is that our number one resource is our attention. So much competes for our tiny bandwidth of attention. To what shall we give, in Lincoln's words, our full measure of devotion? Anyone can pay attention to our times, but what about the eternities? Who shall read them? Well, let's just answer that right now. We are the readers of both time and eternity. We are the people we've been waiting for. So, attention is our one precious and soul-defining resource. Simply put, we become what we pay attention to. So give your attention carefully, with love, devotion. We have superpowers with hyper-focus abilities. Where would we direct our spotlight of attention? To one simple thing. To one simple thing at a time. It could be the Appalachian Trail. Vigilance, then, is needed. Nourish the small startups of wise things and events with your presence and attention, but not with control freaking. Nourish the beings around you as together you return to your natural, just, peaceful, organically harmonious selves. Stay attentive and stay soft and simple. You know, being peaceful is contagious, just like being anxious can spread in a room or a group like a virus. When we soften our attitude to oneself, to others, to life, we release the natural wisdom that lies within you. Your body softens. Your thoughts soften. Your heart softens. A softness that is contagious. Being soft is who we are originally. And remaining soft, our lives become a gentle unfolding rather than some constant battle. Rushing around without attention is just spinning your wheels. So start well, end well, and in the middle, attend well. Okay, Chandler, we're coming down to the end of this. What do you want to say to our folks out there, this class? Why do you keep coming back to Tao? What are you getting and hearing, receiving, seeing? Why be a Taoist?
So how many hours do we have to talk today? Well, let's think. So to me, as I said earlier, simplicity is how I try to live. It's where I find peace and happiness and contentment. And I'm really bad at it. I tend to overcomplicate anything I touch. Take one simple task or event that brings you great joy and give it to me, and I'm going to make it stressful. I don't know if it's me or if it's just life or being a human.
Are you going to do this to our podcast?
Most likely.
Oh, God.
Yeah. I won't be around for long, I don't think. No. But when I look at it, why do I come back, especially to this verse, is because it grounds me, it centers me, and it brings simplicity and peacefulness back into my life. The one thing about Taoism that intrigues me, fascinates me, and is incredible in my mind is the acceptance of life through Tao, where everything works together for reasons. where we as humans are allowed to make decisions, to do things wrong, as I said before, to celebrate when we do things right, and to learn that when things don't go our way, that's also a reason to celebrate. Because it's being driven in the one perfect direction. And it's like the human body, and I think we talked about this, Mark, in one of the previous episodes I was on. It's like the human body, seeks to get to homeostasis. And we, as the being, don't necessarily have to do anything to get there. We have to breathe, which we don't have to think about. We have to digest, which we don't have to think about. All of the small things work together for the greater good.
Yeah. You could also say that if you get hurt, all you have to do is just, keep it bandaged and clean, and it'll heal itself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's very little that we have to do for things to work in harmony.
Yeah.
And that's true in life in general. And I feel like that's what Tao teaches. And when I get to that point where everything I'm touching turns into a dumpster fire, I can sit back, I can meditate, I can think of Tao, I can read, and I can say, okay, let's do this again, one step at a time. And when I hit the end of that trail at 2,175 miles, I can turn around and do it again.
All right, as we begin to conclude here, have you noticed today that our conversation today has flowed much like the themes of this verse 64? We started from simple ideas. We expanded organically into something deeper and richer. And what began in our conversation is a search for ways to express things like a stitch in time saves 9 and how a huge tree began as a seedling, smoothly evolved into an exploration of patience, attention, curiosity, response, growth. I don't think we had an agenda here very much today, did we, Chandler?
No, I don't think so.
Just letting ideas emerge, take root, and grow. So, class, our homework. What am I starting? What journey needs my first step? What keyhole holds the right space for the key that I am? To what kind of balance do I wisely cast my oh-so-precious attention? The natural world is up to a lot of different things and processes that are eons old, so pay attention. We're not the first persons here. What's up with this natural world? Can we sync with it? So thanks for being with us today, Chandler and class. I hope for you all a smooth and effortless flow in your creative processes, just like Tao itself. Seed to tree, embryo to maturity, beginning to end, crawling to running. Unchanging Tao is ever our accompanying guide, every step of the way. And as we do now, we close with a child-friendly version of today's verse. Big things start small. It's easier to take care of something when it's still small. A tiny problem is easier to fix than a big mess. A little sprout is easier to pull than a giant tree. A small leak can flood a basement, so it's better to stop it as soon as you can.
So, notice things, to solve them before they get too big. Keep your place tidy before it turns into a disaster zone. Take care of friendships before they fall apart. A little kindness now can stop a big fight later.
The tallest tree once fit in your hand. The biggest buildings start off with just one brick. Today's journey begins as you step away from your bed.
But be careful. Some people try too hard and ruin things. Some grab too tightly and lose what they hold. The wisest people know when to help and when to let go.
When you're almost done with something, don't rush and mess it up. That's why people say, be careful at the end, just like at the start. If you take your time and pay attention, you'll succeed.
Wise people don't chase after things they don't need. They live simply, help others, and let things grow in their own way. And the cool part? They don't even need to brag about it.
This podcast is brought to you by the word free. This free podcast is a production of many, though. Thank you, Chandler, for your company today. Audrey Davis, thank you for your artwork. Molly Hartwell, thank you for your song and voice. Fortress Press holds the copyright for quotations from my Tao Te Ching translation used here. May your days begin in baby steps of peace and become labs of attention practice for contagious hope.